Social justice and global education. As teachers, how do we bring these concepts into our classrooms? First, we need to define our terms. What is social justice? In class, we looked at Sen's theory, which contradicts Rawls' theory, and it all gets very intellectual and scholarly. We all agreed that social justice is about human rights. But knowing you have rights is not enough. Social justice requires activism and political awareness. What is global education? We agreed it's about expanding horizons, bringing awareness to global issues, building empathy, and identifying simply as human, so that human rights means that we are all equally deserving of basic human rights. And what are those rights? We're talking about things like civil rights, which include things like labor laws and anti-discrimination rights. We're talking about access to things like food, water, healthcare, and education. And we're talking about the barriers to those things, like poverty. How are we bringing these issues into the classroom? We're teaching our students about the UN's global goals for sustainable development. We're informing them of their rights, which are the rights of every child, everywhere. In the junior grades, we're incorporating ideals from the citizenship framework, which includes working for the common good in local, national, and global communities. The ETFO has created resources to help us, as has the Ministry of Education through its website, EduGains. We are bringing these big ideas about citizenship into the classroom with the goal of creating students that are committed to active social justice, both on a local and a global scale, and that identify as global citizens who care about global issues like environmental sustainability, addressing the water crisis, global food waste and hunger, poverty, and anti-discrimination. This has raised some concerns. Maclean's magazine recently asked why children are being brainwashed at school. And the Globe and Mail's Margaret Went also wrote a piece bemoaning the social justice push. Professor Richard McClure feels these criticisms stem from a fear of social justice education as proselytizing, or preaching with a goal to convert. This is not and should not be the goal of social justice education. As Richard notes, the role of the teacher is not to direct students to a particular line of thinking, but rather to collectively gather evidence of social problems, analyze the evidence, and arrive at positions on the basis of their analysis. In other words, collective inquiry that weighs and considers all positions. This is what Ontario classrooms look like today, inquiry-based and democratic, with respect for everyone and all beliefs and points of view. So how do we make sure we're not proselytizing in the classroom? Heather Hackman suggests there are 5 essential components for social justice education. The first is content mastery. Basically, students need factual information that represents not only dominant views, but a wide range of ideas and marginalized voices. And they need help putting this information into historical context, where they can study both the macro and the micro implications. The second involves giving students tools for the critical analysis of systems of oppression. Facts are not enough. The possession of information alone does not necessarily translate into deep knowledge. And having facts does not always help students know what they can do to affect change. Finally, we must take care that we don't present information as truth without inviting critique. In the social justice classroom, all content is subject to debate. The third component involves giving students tools for action and social change. Social justice issues can be depressing to learn about, and often students have been taught to feel disempowered, complacent, or hopeless. We must give students an outlet to act, to help move them from cynicism and despair to hope and possibility. This can be as simple as involving them in poster campaigns, or as complex as creating mini documentaries. The fourth step involves both giving students tools for reflection and critically reflecting as the instructor. For teachers, it is essential to understand your positionality and privilege and how these things can affect your practice. For students, they too need to consider their privilege and work to erase the bystander myth that says, "I'm a nice person, these issues have nothing to do with me." The final step is for teachers and asks them to consider the multicultural group dynamics of their classroom to inform their approach in instructing social justice issues. What happens when we bring social justice into the classroom in this way? When we provide information from many voices, open the floor to debate, give students an outlet to act, and ask them to critically reflect. Ideally, we get civically engaged students that know both their rights and their responsibilities and are unafraid to participate in respectful civic dissent and activism. As Heather Hackman says, educators need to disrupt the notion that silence is patriotic and teach students that their rights as citizens in this society carry responsibilities of participation, voice, and protest, so that this can actually become a society of, by, and for all its citizens. There is one step Heather Hackman forgot, in my opinion. Media Smarts tells us that Canadian students are more connected, more mobile, and more social than ever. They are joining social media at surprisingly young ages. 7 of their top 10 favorite sites involve social media. 1/4 of 4th grade students own their own cell phone. Students are commenting, liking, and sharing. Technology and the internet are running ahead of us at a rapid pace, and with it, new literacies are emerging every day. There are a plethora of books written on the subject. I found an entire shelf at Ottawa University's library. But things are progressing so fast that by the time they hit the shelves, they are already out of date. It is impossible to keep up. Just imagine where we might be in 10 years' time. Our students have an ocean of knowledge at their fingertips, ready to access any time, and with cell phones, anywhere. They are bombarded with information daily on their social media feeds. For many young citizens, this is the only place they get their news, and much of it is false. And the internet, as yet, is not on the same playing field as print and television. It has become a political marketplace, but it has no rules.
You're welcome. Senator Klobuchar, first to you. You want to see Mark Zuckerberg. You think he should come before your committee and say what?
I think he should explain to the American people how this happened, how many people were hurt, and most importantly, how they're going to fix it. Because you just can't have 50 million Americans have their private data exposed without their permission. A couple 100,000 of them may have answered a quiz by a Russian-American professor that somehow Facebook decided could have access to the data. And this is what's happened. And I think you have a product which has been designed without a lock or without an alarm, and big surprise, some of the bad guys have gotten in. And so he needs to explain that, as well as the fact that we don't get support for our Honest Ads Act that I have with Senator McCain and Warner, which would simply put the social media sites on the same rules of the game as you see for print media and radio, TV ads.
Senator.
How do students navigate this ocean? We can't keep students from what I like to call the Twitterverse, nor should we want to. Social media can be a powerful information tool, constantly updated in real time by real people. What we need to do, now more than ever, is give students the tools they need to sort fact from fiction and teach them about their digital footprint and responsible social media use. In short, we must include critical digital literacy in our tools for social justice education. Students are already involved in social media activism and hashtagivism. Some worry that this is actually slacktivism. A slacktivist clicks like and share, but doesn't actually do anything. But these social media movements have mobilized real activists. The Women's March, for example, was organized entirely on social media. If we add critical digital literacy to our social justice teachings, we may just contribute to a media-savvy generation, that knows their voice and how best to use it to change this world for the better.